The Sudha Chandran I know personally. Hello there, welcome back to Prof Neel. It's a pleasure having you here. My students at the IHM Pusa were often surprised on my not having seen the film Nache Mayuri, then to exclaim with wow on my telling them, well, why should I see that movie? Because Sudha is related to me being my first cousin K.D. Chandran's daughter. And being related to me is an honor and a privilege. Because from her, I learned lessons on how to live my life after being disabled after a stroke. Now, this is about Sudha, the person I know in person from a very young age. She was gorgeously beautiful and attractive then also in her school days, the 70s. She had inherited the best of both worlds from her parents. Her father's golden pink color complexion and handsome looks, and her mother's tenacity, grit, and resilience. I often wonder what would have happened if it was the other way around, because her father's grit was only bluff and bluster. He was high on confidence, but otherwise only bluff and bluster. Her mother was the steel from which she inherited steel from. I mean, my brother's bluff and bluster could be, you can ascertain it by when he had the cheek to go and tell Mr. Jaya Chakraborty then that one day my daughter will be, if not, will be more famous than your daughter in the area of Bharatnatyam. That when Sudha was only 3 or 5 years old learning Bharatnatyam, and him was already a name in herself. So that's K.D. Chandran, her father for now. She was brilliant in academics and a budding badminton champion too. Very reticent, very beautiful, with a very beautiful smile. I have a black and white photograph of a family function in the 70s in Ahmedabad, where it's a snap cut by the photographer off guard, all of us, 4 cousins, 3 boys, and she, the only girl in that. And in that black and white photograph, sepia tinted, I mean, there's an aura about her. There's something special about her in that way. While we look like ordinary pedestrians, she looks out of place. Her face looks special in that photograph so many years later, back, and so many years later. Of course, we boys were, of course, attracted to her. Being distant cousins, we tried to use our charms on her, but she never swayed, because focus was her middle name. It is still her middle name. Her focus was on her academics, was on her Bharatnatyam, on her Kathak, and on her badminton and home front. That's it. So it's very traumatic to hear of her accident in the month of May and summer vacations. 1981, 11th standard, I still remember. It was one afternoon when we heard this, that her parents and she, when traveling in a Tamil Nadu state transport bus from Madras to Vayalur, that's where their home, their family deity is there. They had an accident in the middle of the night, a deserted highway, and only thanks to some college boys who had come returning from a late night show, from the hostel probably, and who, with the aid of the torchlights, they plunged to rescue the injured. Amid all this injured and the cries of the injured, the blood and the darkness, they could they found Sudha and they managed to pull her out, because that was the only way possible, because her legs were jammed under the seat which had come down on impact, the seat in front of her, which had trapped her legs. So when they extricated her from there, the wound which was already there caused by the steel, the iron rusted, as it is the state government buses are always rusted, so that got aggravated maybe, and they were taken to the government hospital. Now, after an accident like this, nobody knows who's where. So my brother was on one side and my bhabi Manni was on one side and Sudha was somewhere else. So they were all different beds, clueless, shocked, traumatized, night times. Nobody knew what happened. Nobody knew what was happening. What was going to happen. In steps in another hero, late Mrs. Bhavani Sundaram, my father's sister in Madras, my attai. So Bhavani just dropped everything she had in Madras, her family, her differently challenged, mentally challenged son, everything, her husband, everybody. She just took a taxi and rushed. She went there, and the way she narrated the story of how she managed to, I mean, I heard this first person, and how she narrated, how she managed to, the scene, the pathetic scene of after the accident in the hospital, the cries of the injured, the blood, the gore. I mean, she said it was terrible. And then she somehow managed to locate her nephew, my brother first, then his wife, and Sudha, got them roomed together in a separate room, private room, and then got the physicians to examine them. Well, my brother and Manni were all right, not seriously injured, but Sudha, because of that leg being patched up all night long, and it was being septic, gangrene had spread on one leg. So there's only one verdict: the leg below the knee had to be amputated for the girl to live, and she was a minor at that time, hardly 17 if I'm right. And then Sudha's been quoted later that if Sudha Chandran would not have been a minor, then there would have been no Nachemayuri. It's true. Minors do not require permission or consent of a minor's consent was not required for amputation, anything like that. The parents, but imagine that the decision that the parents have to take to chop off a part of their girl's leg, the only daughter. What a beautiful person, or to save her life, which was a Hobson's choice, a devil's choice rather. It got amputated, and then my attai took them to Madras, where there was home, better medical attention, and better backup. Those backup systems there. After some time, they went back to Bombay, to their home. Now here's another of Sudha's beautiful characteristic traits: her gratitude to her grand aunt and my aunt, Mrs. Bhavani Sundaram. She has never ever missed, or rather, I would rather say that she is always there at their residence or in their household whenever required, whenever her grand aunt requires a presence. Whenever she's shooting in Madras, no matter where she goes, she'll always go and peep in at aunt's house, grand aunt's house. That gratitude. She's never missed grand aunts, grandchildren's, any of their wedding, any of their engagement ceremonies. She's not missed the demise, the ceremony of grand aunt's husband or her grand aunt for that matter, ceremony. So that's something very special about her. Somewhere in 2000, but how did Sudha Chandran, after her amputation, become a dancer? That question always plagued me, and I wanted to know it from the horse's mouth, not from Sudha Chandran, from her mother. And this happened somewhere in 2000, 2001. I went to Bombay on an official trip. It was the fag end of my trip, and I asked for the extension of a 2 days leave after my trip. It was a 1 week grueling calling on sales travel agents and tour operators in Bombay. It meant meeting about 6 to 7 travel agents or tour operators in a day. It was very quite exhaustive. So I said I wanted 2 days to stay with my relatives in Bombay, extra. So my cousin called me and said, "Listen, you come over, stay with us the last 2 days." Now, when I got to know that my Manni, Sudha's mother, was suffering from cancer that time, I insisted I should check out. But that role model of tenacity and grit She said, no way, you're going to stay here. And that's when I asked her, I said, how did you manage to ensure that Sudha got trained in Bharatnatyam? She said, after we put the Jaipur foot, after my husband used to go to office, I summoned the Bhagavatar, her dance master, to teach her Bharatnatyam. Now imagine, this is a mother being cruel to be kind. I mean, what pain and agony mother and daughter have gone through. I shudder. I shudder to think of it now, and not to tell the father. Then one day she told her husband, listen, you better organize an auditorium and public relations for Sudha, her dance program. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to react. It's only when they told him about the rehearsals, and then he saw the rehearsal, reassured by the Bhagavatar, he arranged an auditorium and arranged public relations. The media went berserk after the dance program, although there were butterflies in stomach, naturally so. One of the media reports was read by a gentleman named, a Telugu film producer named Ramoji Rao, who was inspired to make a biopic on her, named Mayuri in Telugu. Now, why is this inspiring? Is because Bharatnatyam is a classical form of dance. You need to tap your soles of the feet repeatedly on the floor, and then squat, get up, balance yourself on one foot when you do the Nataraja pose of Shiva, or else otherwise also. All this with a Jaipur foot, that too after an amputation, would be so painful, would be so much agony. But she took that, and Ramoji Rao was inspired to make this film, and it was a runaway hit. Mayuri, made in so many regional films, regional languages, as Hindi as Nachemayuri. There's a movie star. She was a big hit. Her father's words proved prophetic. She was at that moment more famous than Hema as a film actress and as a Bharatnatyam dancer. If Hema has got a biography on her name named Lotus, Sudha has one named Unstoppable. Hema eloped with Punjabi, so did Sudha, but albeit with a difference. Sudha did not elope with a married man. That's the ethics and values of a father, mother, child. You always say her mother's ethics and values, and her father's, of course, also. Sudha is a motivational speaker, which Hema is not. So, K.D. Chandran's words came too prophetic for Sudha, isn't it? And Hema does not have a biopic to her name as yet. Sudha has one. Embrace the twist to enjoy the turn. Thank you.